Hey everybody, I'm Cody. I work with Nifty at Base58, and we've been doing this summer series on walking through some open source projects that we think are cool. So today we've got jb55, Will Kasser, who's there's like all sorts of awesome stuff with Twister and Core Lightning, and so the stuff that he's going to go through today is Ellen Link and we'll have been having on like web developer side for it is getting connected to it remotely. So that's not something that was like easy for a long time, but now with the new Commando plugin with some of the work that Will's been doing, it becomes easy. And so this is Will on Twitter at jb55, and then the GitHub repo that we're going to be going through is lnsocket, and then JB, if you want to take over and go through anything else that you want to go through. So.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if I should. I guess I should share my screen, but before we start, yeah, I guess I can just jump right into it. Might as well. Let's do it. Share my desktop. Okay. So yeah, as mentioned, it is it's jb55/lnsocket. So this is where you can get the code. So you can clone it from there. Let's see here. So I have some examples, but not many examples. Let me actually increase the size of my screen here. Does everyone see that? Okay. Examples. So I figured what I'd do is kind of just give a brief overview of what it is. So the reason I built this, I wanted a way to talk to Lightning nodes without actually having to run a Lightning node. And why would you want to do this? Well, as mentioned, there's some things you can do right off the bat for all Lightning nodes. Really exciting stuff, like you can ping a node and it can send you back a pong. So you can do that with this library if you want to ping nodes, but obviously that's not very useful. But now that Core Lightning has this really cool plugin called Commando, you can actually do more interesting things, which I'll show in a sec.
Hey, real fast, JB, on the right-hand side where you got the screens open, can you minimize that? So that
these ones?
Yeah, that one. Awesome, thanks.
So let me just jump right into it. So I have an example here, and this is actually Node.js. It's pretty easy to include this. So usually it's something like this, const lnsocket. So this is how you would do it if you want to just install it from npm. Well, the basic idea is, this creates an instance of the library, and then the first thing you do is you call gen key. So this actually will generate a key locally just so that you can connect to a Lightning node. And all you have to really do is pass is the node ID and the IP address of the node. So what this will do, that'll create a Lightning connection and then send the init message. So I think it's bolt 1, I think the spec says that, or bolt 8, I think, I don't know. But the first thing you do when you connect to a node, it just sends some init messages, which sends some features like, what features do we support? In this case, lnsockets just sends 0 because it doesn't actually support any Lightning node features. That's fine. So most Lightning nodes are okay with that. If they're not okay with that, I guess they can drop you, but most of them don't do that. And so, yeah, so at this point we have a Lightning connection with this library, which is pretty cool. And then there's another cool method called RPC, which you can use to call Commando RPCs. So I'll just show you how this works here. Node. So boom, what that did was it created a Lightning connection to a node, and then it called get info. And you can call any method, which is kind of cool. And so you could, so what is, anyway, so before I go any further, I don't know if anyone has any questions so far, but I can keep going.
Yeah, so real fast, so just, this is not using like for L&D, normally the way you interact with it is like gRPC, like kind of what they've built out over there. But for this one, you're actually just sending RPC commands directly to your node. And so it's not like you're dropping over to anything else, right?
Yeah, so all it does, it's not using a web server, it's not doing anything like that. It's just opening a Lightning connection, and it's sending a custom packet, which is the Commando packet. And inside that packet is simply a JSON RPC. I don't even know if it uses the format of JSON RPC. It's literally just a piece of JSON that gives it the method, the parameters, which you can pass in here, and then the rune. So the rune's really important, which we can talk about in a second. But yeah, it's cool. This is really cool because you don't need to run a web server, because typically what you'll be running a Core Lightning node, and if it's a routing node, you'll be like routing payments, so it'll be on the internet anyway. So this is a really quick way to just like connect to your node and then start controlling it. So anyway, anyone else had any questions? I figured I'd probably just start like building stuff with this and kind of give an idea of what things you can do with it. But if anyone has any other questions, I'll just keep going. But
yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously that's one thing you do is get info. It's not that exciting. I just broke it. But what you can also do is do this in the browser, which I think is probably the coolest way to use it. So I have an example here called Websockets.js. So this is intended to be run in the browser. So you'll notice the code is basically the same as the Node.js version, slightly different. I'm going to make this the same eventually. So in this case, it's simply just putting that same response into the browser. So I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to run a Python server, or sorry, a HTTP server locally here. So there, it's as simple as that. So it's the same as Node.js code, except it puts it into your browser.
Cool. So just to kind of, I guess, like give everyone like maybe just like another example, explanation of what you're doing. So like you've got like a web server, which is like running a website, right? And that web page, just with like this rune and lnsocket, is able to create a connection to a lightning node, which is on like a totally different computer, right?
Yeah.
And ask like and fetch, like make an RPC call basically. So you're making like a hello world, not a hello world, I'm sorry, a get info RPC call. But you could also call like tell me all the offers that I have available, right? Or you could like fetch an invoice, or really like anything that you could do like from the RPC that you would normally do like on the command line. Now you can do it on a web page that's like hosted anywhere else in the world, as long as you have like a rune. And then you also need like a connection string, right? I don't know if you went over like connection string stuff, but
yeah. So just open this here. Open something again. Just go back to the examples. So going back to this code. So actually, real quick, I'll just show you what that web page looks like. It's as simple as you can get. It's just an HTML document, and then I don't need that. You just include the lnsocket.js, and then you include that file we just looked at, which is websockets.js. So this is a kind of like the most minimal example of using it in the browser. Yeah, so the connection string in some sense is your node ID, which is you need that to make sure that it's encrypted. So one thing to note is that every Lightning connection is encrypted. So it uses so this is the node ID of my node that I'm running on another computer. So it needs that to create that secure connection. And then so what it does is, so this gen key, it'll create a new secret key locally, and then it'll do ECDH with this key. Very roughly, and then it'll create a shared secret, which we'll then use to encrypt all the information. And then you'll see that it's just using this WebSockets direct connection to the node. So this is actually going directly to the node. This isn't using a proxy. This is just direct WebSockets. And what it actually looks like when you actually do that, you can actually look in your browser inspector and what's actually happening. So this is typically what you'll see. I'm sure any web developers has seen this before, but it's like kind of all the network activity that's happening in your browser. So it's kind of interesting to see what's actually happening. So you'll notice that in this WebSocket section, it's sending these binary messages, and these are actually just raw kind of like protocol stuff. So you'll notice, actually, just look at the very first packet that it sends out here. We'll see what that is. That's in Base64. Yeah, it's just like, I think the first thing it sends is like the node ID, but this is just sending it directly to the Lightning node, and it knows how to interpret it. So it does a few things back and forth, but then you'll notice it's all encrypted. There's actually no way to see the contents of this message. So even though this is over a non-TLS connection, it's still completely encrypted, which is actually kind of annoying for debugging. You can't really see the request going through here, but you can log it out in your console if you need to. So I actually utilize this in a few. I'll give you some demo projects of kind of more advanced usages of this. So I have I'm working on this project right now, which I haven't really published yet. Let's see if so this is actually using that same library to fetch invoices from my node, and like all the times I've paid for things on my node. So this is happening all over lnsocket, which is kind of fun. Another example is lnlink.app. So this is an app you can use to control your C Lightning node and pay for things, which is kind of fun in iOS. And I have another one right now, which is kind of fun, which is sensats.lol. So you'll see in this case, you can actually configure this and change the address, and you'll see that it tries to connect to these nodes in your browser. So it's a similar thing. But maybe next would be so these are kind of like if you're fully utilizing this library, things you can build. But maybe it'd be fun to step through and actually try to build one of these step by step to kind of see how the library works. But I don't know what else for now. So maybe that'd be helpful to just kind of see more. Let's try to build something from the ground up. I think using this, using the web version of it. I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to do. So, because then it'll give me a chance to kind of show off a lot of the kind of the things you need, like especially the rune system. So runes are a way of authenticating these requests. So you'll notice right here. So Rune is a really cool way of authenticating these requests, because by default, if I don't actually have the right rune, it will just complain. But first, I'm actually just gonna maybe show exactly what this is. So if you pass a rune to C Lightning's decode function, it'll Rusty implemented this really awesome thing where it'll show exactly what it means. So in this case, you'll notice that it says for this rune, you're only allowed to call get info. And if I try to use this rune for anything else, so I'll give a demo of this real quick. Let's go back here. I have a tool called lnRpc. So be given a node ID and a host name, a rune. So we'll try giving it that rune and a method. So get info. So this should work. Right. So, but if I try to call anything else, let's say like pay, it'll say not authorized, method is not equal to get info. And that's really important, because if anyone could just call pay, then they could easily drain your node. So it's kind of important that that works. And you can do more powerful things with these runes. So one thing I did recently, which I thought was pretty cool, is, let me just see real quick. So this computer I just shelled into is the one where my Lightning node is running. So you can kind of see it's doing stuff right now. So let me just create a new rune. So, and I hope they don't screw this up on stream and like show you guys like an admin super rune or something, and then you guys can get access to my node, but I'm going to try to do this right. Restrictions. So one way to make a rune restricted to a specific method is just you do this. So this tells it that this rune has one restriction, that I want them only be able to call get info. Oops, I did that wrong. Commando rune, obviously. So this is a rune that you can give to people, and then they can call get info on your node, which is kind of fun. But you can add additional restrictions. And I did this in this one particular case. Where is it? This one. So I did this recently. I did this morning on Twitter, where I was like, hey, if you can execute this command. So actually, let me just step back. So let's say, so not only can you put restrictions on methods, but you can actually put them on parameters of these methods. So one thing you could do is say p array 0. So this rune will say you can call list offers, but if you were to call list offers right now on your node, it would give you like every single offer, and that's not really good, because sometimes you'll have like offer outs which will give the ability to take money out of your node. So you don't want to give like a kind of blanket list offers rune so that people can call that. So what you can do is, instead of saying everything, you can actually add parameter restrictions. You can say PR0. So I only want you to be able to call this method with this argument, positional argument. So if to give an example, I'll go back to my other computer, lnRpc, with this rune, and I'll try to call list offers, and it should fail. It's saying it's not present, but if I give it some arguments. Oops. Which would I have this thing up here, right? And I don't know what that was. It wasn't an offer. Let's see. List offers. Anyway, so you'll see that it requires a specific offer ID, which is kind of fun. Anyway, so that just was showcasing some powerful features of runes. There's a really good documentation for this in Lightning and C Lightning. If you go to doc Lightning commando rune, some really good docs on how you can add further restrictions like time restrictions. So if you want this rune to only be valid for the next 10 minutes, you can have named parameters. So you say pname destination, for instance. You can do rate limiting. Say I only want people to call this rune once every 2 minutes. So yeah, really powerful. So LND has a similar mechanism called macaroons, but they don't have these powerful restrictions, which is why I like the rune. This one. Yeah. Before I continue, I don't know if anyone has any questions, but
Rune thing, just as some context for people, this whole commando is part of the commando plugin. Right now, if you wanted to run runes, you can download it from the plugins like repo for Core Lightning. There's like a Python implementation, but the next release, which I'm in the process of getting out, hopefully the next day or so, will have a commando built in. So every Core Lightning node that gets basically that's downloaded as of our next release will have like runes and commando built in. So you'll be able to, for your own node, be able to make your own like custom runes for your node that give people permissions to access it over lnsocket, which is what Will is showing off. So anyway.
Yeah. So one thing I had a lot of fun doing was building this. I basically wanted to have the functionality of Tallycoin, where you can kind of like this crowdfunding feature, but without having to actually run any code. Like I didn't want to have to like run all the Tallycoin software or whatever the integration required. So this was kind of a fun demo I did with lnsocket, where you can create these cool summaries of like payments to your node. So let's see what the next thing is. So you'll notice this site has a couple of other features, like you can actually request bolt 11s. So maybe I'll show a little how you might do that with lnsocket. That'd be kind of fun, I think. So just going back to the browser example, let's see, we have WebSockets. So instead of calling get info, maybe we want to provide the ability for the browser to create an invoice. So this is obviously a very, very useful thing if you want people to pay for things. So what's cool about this is that you can actually generate invoices dynamically, and you can like kind of change the description dynamically in the browser. So, C Lightning has support for this new feature called Bolt 12, and it can kind of do dynamic, or they call it static invoices in a different way. But this is just an alternative to that, where you can potentially do these Bolt 11 type invoices. You can kind of create them in the browser, which is kind of fun. So how might you do that? Let's just pull down tip jar. So I have this tip jar example. So in this case, so instead of the get info, you can do another one. You can do different requests. So in this case, I'm doing one where I'm calling the invoice method and I'm passing in some arguments, where you can change the description, change the label. So yeah, and you can call this right in the browser, which is kind of fun. So in this case, yeah, you can make an invoice, and then you can actually just build the QR code from that invoice right in the browser. Let's see. So let's try to build that. I don't know what the format is, what you guys typically do. Like, would it be cool to do a demo of me building something, or should it be more of like an exploratory thing of the code base? Like, I'm not really sure what the format is here, but.
Yeah, you should definitely build something. I think that'd be super awesome. Like, I mean, that's what personally I would love to see it. Everyone's done something like a little bit different. but I think watching you build something with it would be like super dope.
Okay, let's do that. I'll just start basically how I built my website. Let's just do that. So let's do. I created a like a new HTML document called. I have a little script here that just makes a template HTML document because I've done that so many times in my life. I just like, why not? Okay, and hello world, and then we will include lnsocket, and we will include tip jar or demo. Why not? Demo. And I'm going to open up my other thing just because I don't want to have to retype this again. So we'll copy our hello world code over here. This is basically the same. That looks good to me. So I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a little helper function. I'm going to call this. What did I call this before? Let me just see. Yeah, make request. I just find this like kind of a handy function to have, and I'll show you what that is in a second. So make request is a function that, creates a new lnsocket instance, generates a key, connects to it, connects to the node, and I will change this real quick. I'll change it to what I had over here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just getting my connection string just so I'm doing the right node. Okay. And I've just kind of generalized this a bit. So you can just pass it a method, a rune, and params. So you can kind of reuse this bit of the code. So I'm going to do another function called Rpc invoice. Relatively simple. So we need an invoice rune here. Do that real quick. LCLI is just my alias for Lightning CLI. If anyone's curious what that is. Then we'll do commando rune, and we'll do restrictions equals. We want method to be invoice, and we can do some. I think it's generally a good idea to set the rate to something reasonable, just so people can't spam your node with invoices if they want to try to be annoying. So you could just do something simple like, but I'll just do 30 per minute, but that seems reasonable for now. Another thing I actually like to do, and I've been doing this more lately, which is these p-name restrictions on the label. So I say, I expect this label to start with demo. And I just kind of like that because it prevents people from like using this rune to make a bunch of labels that you don't want to like spam your node with it. So this just allows you to namespace your invoice creation if people want to try to abuse this. I'll just do that, p-name label. And then I think that's all I care about. Oh yeah, and so another thing you might want to do, especially if you're building a website that for like, if you want to charge people for things, you can actually just set the p name amount Satoshi or something to a specific amount, so they can only create invoices worth a specific amount for some reason. I don't know. You might want to use that feature, but for now we'll just do these restrictions. So use this. So this will be our rune that we will use to create invoices. Let's just do that. So now we can do await, make request, and then we pass it the method, which is invoice, the rune, and the params. Then we can just generalize that so you can pass that in. Params. Okay. Now let's make our function that gets called right when the page loads. So maybe just to start, we'll just create an invoice, put in the page, because why not? Document. Document.innerHTML equals wait. See invoice. And we'll give it label description. Now I have to remember to use amount msat now, because like everything was changed from msatoshi to amount msat, and like literally broke like everything. And I can only realize that after I set the allow deprecated APIs to true or false or whatever. So that was fun. So I'm slowly fixing all my apps, but that was a huge change I noticed. So make sure I use amount msat this time. So we can do amount msat is equal to 5,000 or 100 sats, I don't know. And then label. So this has to start with demo now. So we could do something like create a UUID here. And our UUID will be super unique. And then description. This is actually be more fun if you like gathered this description from somewhere, like a prompt. I don't know. I think that's what it is, right? How do I prompt HTML? Prompt input. This is my script that's pretty cool. It like gets it from. Sometimes it doesn't work that well though. Let's try this. Anyway, I think it's prompt. And then how? Just make sure. Sorry. If we just do it from here, probably. Prompt. Okay. That's what I want. Prompt description. All right. So now I'm actually just going to log it. Let's just get the value first. Const val. Let's make sure we have everything right. Looks good to me. Do that Python thing, which is really cool. Allows you to spawn HTTP. So the reason we have to spawn, normally you wouldn't have to do this, but for whatever reason, sorry, Python. Where is it? I don't know which one it is. So this one. Jesus, why do I have all these in my history and they don't even work? Got it. Sorry, I'm just super spazzing out right now. I think it's this one. That's right. Oh my god. Am I confused? Okay, sorry. There's like a million. I hate that. So the reason why we have to do that is because this glue script, the lnsocket glue script, will try to load the WASM file, and you can't load them. Let's see if I can see it here. lnsocket. Why don't I see it? Anyway, it's console log. Okay, so there's a syntax error, so that's reasonable. Socket examples. Where is it? It's on line 7. I have, oh, okay, I screwed that up, sorry. Try that again, reload. Okay, so it's prompting me now. This is my weird prompt in my browser that I have. Hello there. So you'll notice that it created I got a response back. Let's see if and this should have, why can't I copy that? This should have hello there in the description. So that's pretty cool. So we just created an invoice on our node with the label should have, see the label. Let's see, list invoices. Oops. I don't want to do that. I don't think list invoices with that. I think if you just give it the bolt 11, it should work. I'm not 100% sure, but no. List invoices, GQ. Invoices last. Yeah, so you notice it has that label. And that won't work again because we need to actually make sure our label is unique. So I refresh the page, it should give me an error. But yeah, that's how you create invoices. So that would be the first step in any app that I'm building is to like, yeah, I want to make invoices so I can people send me money. Like that's obvious. But let's just use this real quick to make this unique. Date, get time. Hello there. Yay. Here we go. Okay. That's, yeah, step 1. This is how I typically start any project with lnsocket. I just start calling RPCs on my node. And then you realize it's like you can call any RPC. And it gets even more fun because then you can make your own RPCs and then call those. Example of this is I have an RPC called core RPC. So this is a kind of a fun thing I made that just allows me to call any Bitcoin core RPC method. So using that, I was able to build a UI for my Bitcoin Core GUI, which is pretty fun, through lnsocket. What else we do? Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, JB, real fast. So what you're doing there is the BCLI plugin that's running on your Core Lightning node. Is that you're routing the command through the Core Lightning node, and then it's hitting whatever the Core Lightning is using as the Bitcoin backend.
Yeah, exactly. So this again, this LCLI thing is just it's just Lightning CLI. So whenever you see me doing that here, I'm just like calling my node directly through over SSH. But that's yeah, that's anyway. But yeah, so so let me just do this real quick. So this is where my Lightning thing is. Lightning CLI help. And you'll notice that I actually have an RPC that I've added through a plugin called Core RPC. So a cool thing about plugins on Core Lightning is that it can add RPC methods. And the reason why this is so insanely powerful is that the minute you add an RPC, now you can access that through Commando, right? So because the restrictions, it doesn't really care about. It doesn't know like the rune restrictions. It doesn't know anything about the plugins. It just restricts it based off the name of the method. But you can add additional methods. Like I'm adding. There's one called Hub. I think I'm working on right now. Let's see. But yeah, so another one that just was added is Bookkeeper, which is Lisa's accounting plugin. So I'm totally going to use these methods to build functionality into the BTC merchant thing I'm working on. But yeah, it's just so much fun because you can just like add methods. And that's what I kind of did with the tip jar on my website. The only reason it can actually summarize these amounts is that I created a new plugin. I created a plugin called Offer Summary. So this is kind of like this basically gives you Tallycoin in a plugin in the sense that you just give it an offer ID or a description. So recently, for instance, I recently did a crowdfund for something. And so I wanted to, so I'll show you what that looks like over here, Damas.io. So all this pages is just calling offer summary. So we do offer Damas. I think it's just description. It actually just creates kind of like a tally, like the top donors. It gives me all the paid invoices. So yeah, so you can kind of create new functionality and expose it to a web client like this. And this just talks directly to my node. So you'll notice that it works the same network. Anyway, it's in here somewhere. Yeah, boom, talks directly to my node, which is pretty cool. It's just calling RPCs, and this is why I feel like this is a really powerful way to build apps. Is that you can create this small little code to like do something like summarize invoices, and then you can build a page like this without having to run a web server even, which is kind of fun. So another fun thing, actually, might just one fun thing you could demo here. So let's continue. Unless anyone has any more questions, I will continue on to the thing I'm building, the demo. But what's cool about this is like everything you've seen so far is like, this is all it really is. Like, you just replace invoice with like your method, like offer summary with the proper rune, and you can now call any RPC. So I really want to see what people can build with this, because I want to see like, build a cool plugin that exposes some cool functionality, and then like now let's start making dashboards for CLM. Let's start making dashboards for your Bitcoin Core node. Let's start, real time. And not only that, but you can actually build more real-time demos, which I want to show off right now. So yeah, this is cool because it kind of just gives you. So let's instead of logging it, let's just put it into here, into the actual document. HTML val dot. I think that's it. Yep. Hey, that didn't work. What? Demo effect. What did I do wrong? JSON stringify. I think I did that right. What? No one said coding is ever that obvious sometimes. I literally do this all the time. Why is this not working? Console.log val. Is anyone seeing something that I'm not seeing right now? Document inner HTML. Oh. Do that. Okay. So that's like, yeah, we can actually start putting stuff into the page, which is kind of fun. But another thing we might want to do is, I'm actually just going to take the code from the tip jar, and we want to make a QR code real quick, just so we can see something a little bit more visual. Bolt 11, let's see, invoice. Oh yeah, because we get the response, and then we want to do let's just do this real quick. Response.bolt11. Just for a second, so we can see that we're getting the right thing. Okay, we got that. And now we want to put that into a QR code using this little QR library. To const bolt11. That looks right to me. We make it uppercase just so it encodes it nicely. I'm gonna do demo. Wait, where is this? Demo.js. Yeah. We need just an element to hold the QR code for the most part. QR code. Looks right to me. Demo. Document. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me anytime if you have some questions stirring in your mind that you just need to ask. I don't mind while I'm just coding away here. Query selector. QR code. So this will give us the element. Oh wait, this does this for us, I think. So this should just work. Let's try that again. Hello. QR code. Right, I don't have the QR code library installed. So it's pretty easy. I'm actually going to get it from my website. I think it's here somewhere. One sec. Yeah, QR code.min, whatever. And let's put it here. So we have it. QR code. And that should work. If I could find where I was. Boom. So you can present a QR code on the page. People can scan it. So if anyone wants to, well, actually, before anyone pays that, I mean, I would appreciate it, but I want to do something more fun first, which is I want to actually update the page in real time after it's been paid. Like that, it's a cool feeling, right? You see a QR code and like you scan it and it gets paid and then it instantly updates on the page. And we can do that probably faster than any way that people do it right now, because it's just like holding open a connection to waiting for an invoice. So how might we do that? Let's create another function. We're going to call it wait invoice. And this is a really awesome RPC that Core Lightning has. That allows you to just wait for an invoice. It's very, I mean, I feel like the name really says it. Let's see if I can get it. So we'll do help, wait invoice. So it's really simple. You just give it a label and it'll just wait till it gets paid. So we have the label from the previous step right here. So once we create it, we can wait on it. So we'll do const. We'll just wait for invoice. We'll give it a label. And once we're done waiting, we'll just do, first we'll get a reference to the QR code, document.query selector. QR code. L inner document. Let's just do this actually. We don't even need that. Yeah, we'll do it. L dot inner HTML paid. Is anyone ready to like test this? That'd be kind of cool if it actually just worked right away. It probably won't, but
I got you.
okay. Let's see. Wait for invoice. Wait for invoice. We're gonna do make request. So one more thing we need. Wait invoice. Params is gonna be to the label. We need the rune. So the rune. We need an invoice rune or a wait invoice rune. In this particular case, we actually do want to make sure that we get this right because we don't want anyone waiting for any invoice ID. I mean, it's probably not a big deal if you have somewhat random invoice IDs, but let's just do this right. We're going to do LCLI commando rune restrictions equals method is wait invoice, and we want the pname label to start with demo. In this case, we're not using UUID, like we're just using timestamps, which is bad, anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's just for demo, it's fine. Let's do this. So this will give us a rune where we can wait for stuff. So now I do actually have some additional code to make this smarter. So you, like for instance, let's say you get disconnected, you're on mobile. It would be smart to do something like this, true. And if there's ever an exception. So this is just like, again, for robustness, just so that you can reconnect. Don't really care what the catch statement is. Do something like console log. Disconnected. Trying again. I think that makes sense. Yes. But if it works, then we return. Yes. Okay. Waiting for invoice. So that should work, assuming I didn't break anything or I didn't screw it up somehow. Just to double check. Async. Should we try it? I don't know if I trust my skills. I did only set it for 100 sats, right? I mean, I could do it lower, but oops, test. All right, I'll see if anyone wants to try to pay that and see if our code works. Whoa, someone did it instantly. Okay, that was fast. Whoever did that, jeez. So it's kind of cool, right? You can actually kind of build these like real-time responsive UIs for paying for things in the browser, and all you have to do is just calling C Lightning RPCs. I don't know if we want to stop there, but I thought it's kind of a cool. I want more people using this. I think hopefully I got a lot of people excited to like start trying these things. It's a lot of fun, and I want to see this bookkeeper interface because I would love to have accounting UI in the browser. So I'm gonna start working on that. If anyone wants to try working on other things, but that's kind of like my demo. I think that's just a really cool way to show it off. But if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple, JB. That was super awesome. So like you brought this up a couple times in terms of like spamming, right? So if you're going to be like letting someone talk to your node from a browser, then can you just go through like the runes and like what's included there, like what's stopping someone from like just hitting this thing over and over and over again, right?
It's a really, really good, because I've never tested this and I kind of want to do that now. I want to try spamming my node. So let's try doing that. So let's see. So I'm going to create a new rune, get info, and I'm going to set the rate to you're only allowed to call this 1 time per second. So I'm going to go down here and call lnRPC on my node with that particular rune. So what's interesting is that the rate limiting counter, I think, is per rune. So this is like everyone who's trying to use this rune will get rate limited if it has a low rate. So let's just do Boom. See, so it's kind of cool. So that's one way you can rate limit. It's just using this rate parameter, which is documented in the Commando rune docs. Really powerful. Like sometimes it's like I worry about it because imagine if you're selling a really popular product and you have like rate like 60 times per second and people can't buy your stuff fast enough. Like that'd be my only concern. I don't want to like restrict that, but for certain things that you know that you only really need to call it like once a minute or maybe 30 times a minute or like 10 times a minute, it's a really powerful parameter to kind of like prevent people from spamming you.
So you have to generate a new rune.
Yeah,
in
you
that
could even
case,
put up
right?
like intermediate logic, right? Where instead of like you just doing this and just leaving it static up there, is that if you're using like load balancers, then you could have like just intermediate logic there, where it's like, you know, as you're increasing load, then you like adjust the rune for it.
Yeah, there's like that's one thing I didn't actually mention. It's a good point. Is that you can actually take an existing rune and create a sub rune. So if you just do rune this, let's actually create an initial rune of like, let's see, commando rune. Let's do get info again. And set the rate to like 10 times a minute. As far as I know, from reading the docs, if you do this, if you do rune equals, and then you further restrict it, let's see. So yeah, anyway, so a cool feature about runes is that you can take in it like it's a bearer token. It has everything it needs. It's like basically the way that it works. It's like it's signed by the node, but anyone who has that token, they can actually add further restrictions to it. So I'm curious what happens if I add another rate to this one. Let's decode. Interesting. From what from the docs, it says that it should be like half of the. Let me just try calling this. Yeah. I don't know. I'm probably confusing myself, but there's a way to further restrict it to like if you don't really trust the person that you're passing it to, you can further restrict it, add even a higher rate limit to it, so that they can call it even less. But anyway, so there's a lot of interesting things you can do in terms of like further restricting runes, which is kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, that's so another thing to mention is so this works in the browser, but it also works in C. So I actually use this within lnlink, and that's what I mentioned before. So you can actually compile this down in mobile. So this should work. I want to see someone get this working in Android. I think that'd be really cool. I haven't tried that yet, but I got it working in iOS. There's a way you can just type like make iOS right here, and that'll do that. And then someone, I think one of the people on the green team, I forget his name, Luca, he built a Rust version, which is kind of cool. So we have some Rust code in here. If anyone wants to expand on this though, it's kind of like really rough. Like this is just like a really rough FFI to the C code. But if anyone wants to expand this out to a proper Rust API, I would love that. Then we can have like a full Rust version of this. And one other thing I want to mention, cool thing I was building with this, which was ln commando. So this uses the Node.js library of lnsocket to build a ln server. So that's kind of cool. If you want to learn how ln works, this is basically what powers. Let's see. Actually, maybe I'll give it a quick demo of this because I think it's really cool. So ln is a way to basically create Bolt 11 invoices in a standard way, and it's been implemented in most Lightning wallets. And the way that it works is that you just give it an email address. Oop, I don't want to do that one. Let's do my other one. It's not really an email address. It's a Lightning address, they call it. But the way that it works is that what this actually did is it looks for a particular path in the host name. So to look for sendsats.lol/well-known ln and then the username. So let's try Fiat Jeff because he has a user. So what it does is it returns us some metadata about like what is presented when you scan the code, but it also returns this callback thing, which you can use to create the Bolt 11. So do that real quick. Amount 10,000 MSAT. I don't know. So what this did was basically use commando to, in the same way we did it in the browser, but in this case we're using it in this ln protocol, which is kind of fun. So you can implement ln for you can basically create a Lightning address for your CLN node, which is kind of fun. And that's what sendsats.ll does using Commando, which is kind of fun. So yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to show because I think that's pretty cool.
Do you have a ln URL auth? That was another.
So I the thing is I've only played with lnURL a little bit, and I haven't looked at the lnURL auth spec, but I do want to implement that for an ln link. So I haven't done that yet, but I do want to do that. I just don't know anything about it. That's the only issue. But you could probably do something with Commando here. I don't see why not. But yeah, you could probably do a lot of stuff that I have yet to get to. Like for instance, like opening channels. Like you could probably implement most of lnURL with Commando. I just haven't done it yet. Like opening channel specs. Like I don't even know how that works, but yeah. I have nothing else. I'm just kind of messing around now.
Okay. Yeah. So for just like again, so like I said this at the beginning, but like this is like way easier to connect to than anything previously. Like
Yes.
that was always the problem with doing web development with Core Lightning was like, how do I talk to the node, right? And like a lot of people were using like RTL's API, right? Like that sort of thing. But this is one where you're just directly sending requests to the node itself, and you're not there's no layers in between there.
Yeah,
So
and this is literally like I literally created this library for this specific case because I don't want to run a VPN. I don't want to run a Tor just to like access my node. I'm like, wait, my node is already accessible on the network as a Lightning node, and I can send TLVs over Lightning. Why don't I just and I just discovered that Rusty made this Commando plugin. This was before Commando was built into C Lightning. I'm like, holy crap, this is exactly what I need to build this app. And this is, I built the library to build ln link. So if you have iOS, definitely check this out. But yeah, but then I realized it's like, oh shit. Yeah, it's useful for building this app to pay for things, but I could use this to do anything. Like it's like so powerful. You can use it to build these like crazy interfaces. And I even have this other app called like lnlink.org where you create these payment links. So this demo is, and I've showed this before on my Twitter, but this is basically the demo that I just wrote for you guys, but it's a little bit more powerful in the sense that you can create these like payment link pages. So all the information that's encoded in this page is in the URL. So base. I'm sure I screwed that up somehow. Anyway, so this is just a page that is, if you give it some info, 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I probably broke this because of damn it. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of fun things you can do, like the payment link things. I just think this is way better than any other like gRPC setup because like it's just so simple, right? And you don't need like certificates or go through the web to do it. So I don't know if there's anything else to say, but
yeah. So like because you brought up lnURL there, right? Is that lnURL like one of the like things that everybody was touting us for was like, hey, this is a way that you can talk to the node, but like now you're just talking to it directly. You're not like hitting the web server, which goes talks to the node, comes back, gives you whatever it wants.
But
right?
the profound thing is that you can still use lnURL, right? Because all lnURL requires is for you to create invoices. But now we have a very specific way to fetch invoices using the rune system. So you can implement because the biggest thing for me is like I didn't want to run a web server next to my Lightning node at home. Like I run my Lightning node at home. Like I think it's really important that you run your Lightning node in place that you control. And I don't like running web servers at home just because I don't want to have too many surface area for attack. So this provides a way to basically implement lnURL without having to run a web server, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. So kind of like how this like fits into like the whole Lightning thing, right? Would be because like this is something I only kind of put the pieces together of like what Blockstream is building after like talking to Lisa about this for a bit. But it's like, you've got like Liquid, which you can do peer swap with. And so you can go over like native Bitcoin Lightning into Liquid as an execution environment and come back out of it just all over Lightning. For using lnsocket, you can talk directly to your Lightning node. And so you don't have to be running all these like web servers or like have it hosted by somebody or anything like that. And then, so whatever like your node is running, so like you could be running just like main chain, you could be running Liquid, you could be running like a federation or whatever, right? And like, because you can talk directly to the Lightning node, like now, and you can just add these RPC commands into it. that you can basically just whatever you want from there. You don't have to have the intermediary that like everybody's using right now.
Well, this is why I gave this talk, and I think it's a really profound idea, which is I think Lightning could become like the communications layer for a Bitcoin economy, in the sense that it becomes this layer which is extensible, which is extremely secure. Like, you know, Lightning, the protocol, the
It's noise, right?
It's like it's noise, and it's like, and it doesn't require any central certificate authorities. So it's like we have this this insanely secure, fast protocol which we can extend and add RPCs on top of, like. So I was just giving a demo of like a browser to a node, but you can do like node to node. I mean, like node to node is already kind of possible because you can do like send custom message RPC. But you can have server to node. You can have like mobile to, like, another example that I'm going to be implementing. I'm building this app called Damus, which is like a Nostra social media app, and I want someone that when I press the upvote button, it sends a sat, but I want, as an option, you can actually connect over lnsocket. It can connect directly to your node and use your node to pay for things.
Mhm.
So like, I don't think many people are thinking about it in this way, but you can provide these like fine grained access to your node to do interesting things, and you can create this network of like Lightning nodes that can talk to each other that are in some sense also creating an interface, a secure interface, so that you can expose other functionality. Like in the example where I exposed my Bitcoin Core node, I was like, I wanted to build an admin interface for my Bitcoin Core node, like generate addresses, do PSBT stuff. You know, since I just exposed Bitcoin Core's JSON RPC over the C Lightning RPC, I can now access that from Commando. So you can start building these, and I do the same with Liquid. You can do that same with like Fedi, I'm sure, or anything, right? So I really like this, like using Lightning as that communications layer, and lnsocket kind of powers that in some sense.
Yeah, and that's so because that's another one. Just like think about like the way that web developers are normally used to stuff, right? Is that normally you're just using like RESTful API or whatever, right? But because you can just send the exact RPC command that you want, now like even like, I mean, I think about this as like, you know, some like mostly does like sort of backend stuff, right? Is like, you know, I don't like using all the web tooling or whatever. Like, I'd like to just be able to.
You don't have to like contort your request over GraphQL or over REST.
Yeah.
Like now it's just like literally JSON RPCs over Lightning. It's like it is a very different way of developing, but I find it so much more intuitive. It feels like you're just calling the API directly, right?
Yeah,
just kind of fun.
Yeah, and like you're just limited by the, like, especially because like your Bitcoin Core one, right, is like now with they're like adding all this support for descriptor wallets and all that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
And so it's not like I have to update all the APIs and stuff that I was using as an intermediary for this.
Right. It's like, yeah, exactly. No, that is actually that's a extremely good point. Like, and I was running into this issue with Spark because I was using Spark for the longest time, and like it wasn't keeping up to date with Core Lightning's RPCs, and it would break all the time. Now you can just go directly to the source, and you're always up to date on the source's RPC, right? You don't have to worry about these intermediate layers that are breaking all the time, which is it's an amazing. I just love that about it.
You said you had some code examples for Damus where you were like plugging Lightning in. Like, do you think you could go through one of those for like so I haven't know nothing about Nostr, but for like when you were on TFTC, you were going over like that's very simple in the way that it's set up. Like, so if you gotta give a little bit of background on Nostr and then like how you're using lnsocket there.
So I'm not using it yet, but I can give it what it's going to look like because I'm using it within. Let me just clone this real quick. Damus. I think I have the reason I don't have this on my computer, on this computer, is because Damus is a Mac OS or iOS project, and this is a Linux machine, so I don't normally do dev here. But this is all my Swift code for all my Nostra stuff. So that's Damus. I'm actually not going to do that though. What was I doing? jb55 Lightning link, I called it, or Allen link. So we just do lnsocket receive. Okay, so let's just look at, this is what my code in Damus is going to look like. I don't know if we want to go over like Nostra because it's kind of out of scope, but I could totally talk about it if people are interested in Nostra. But maybe I can show a little bit how lnsocket works within this iOS app that I'm using.
Yep.
So I have this class called lnsocket, and it's like literally the same as the JS code. You'll see that it has gen key, and it's actually just calling the C library versions of all the functions. In the case of the web stuff I just showed you, I actually just compile my C code directly to WASM, and that's how you're able to access that in the web in the browser. But in this case, I'm just calling the C function directly from Swift. You'll notice it's pretty much exactly the same. And then so let's see. RPC. So I'll have another one called, where is it? Oh. RPC commando. Yeah, so I just have a function called perform RPC that just calls the commando. This is just like commando code. That's what this is like the lower level commando code. But yeah, so now I have the same functionality that I have in the browser. I just do it from the iOS instead. There is a complication in the browser in the sense you have to use WebSockets, but since you're in a native environment on mobile, you can just use direct sockets, not WebSockets, which makes things actually a lot easier. But in that case, what I'm probably going to do, so in lnsocket, the only permission you have to, or sorry, in ln, the only permission you need to give is, I don't know if I can show, maybe not right now, but yeah, let's see, perform RPC. So I do call a few things in Lightning Link or ln link. I call get info, I call offers, I call pay, fetching invoices. So ln link is able to pay ln URLs, offers, bolt 11s. So it does that just by calling C-Lightning RPCs like fetch invoice. The fetch invoice is used for fetching bolt 12 invoices from buffers. So again, these are just CLN RPC calls from this app, right? But in the case of RPC pay, so in the case of Damus, what I'm probably going to do is I'm just going to call RPC pay, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much to explain, but it's just in all these apps, I'm just calling C-Lightning RPCs, right? So when you click that upvote button, it's just going to call, if you configure your node, so what you'd have to give it is your node ID, your IP, and then a rune that was able to call pay. It's actually kind of dangerous to give people the ability to call pay, because then people can like drain your node, right? So if you so you have to be careful in terms of what apps you're giving that to. But you can do some interesting things, such as let's see, in the commando case, LCLI commando rune. You would probably want to do, I actually don't know if I want to do this on screen because I don't want to give you guys a rune to pay for stuff. But you do something like method pay, and then maybe you do p name amount msat. I only want amount msat to be less than like this, and then you can only call it once a minute. So like this would like definitely, if this got into the wrong hands, it would reduce the amount of damage it could do in terms of people trying to drain your node. But this is kind of like what I'm thinking. But yeah, other than that though, if people, I'm going to have a custodial option in Damus. Let me just go. So this is what Damus looks like. It's just, it's an iOS app. And then you'll notice there's a little button here. This is going to be the button you press. When you press that button, it's going to do a Lightning payment to that particular user. But I'm going to have a custodial option. So this is why I'm building a new plugin right now called CLN Hub, where you can just deposit sats into your custodial wallet in Damus, and then my node will do the payments for you for paying things, which would be kind of fun. Because I do want to build like a decentralized way of doing tipping somehow. But it's just I have something I'm working on. I'm just nothing to really demo yet. But definitely check out this app if you. It's all open source, so you can check that out. But this is the cool thing about this libraries though. Now you can start implementing like little bits of Lightning functionality into all your apps. Like this app is not necessarily have anything to do with Lightning. Like right now there's no Lightning in Damus, right? It just uses this other protocol called Nostra. But I'm integrating a small piece of Lightning into this app via this tipping, via this new functionality enabled by lnsocket. So I think that'll be kind of fun as a demo. So I'm really excited to like what other people can build. It's like, imagine if you're building a server to server app that needs to like talk to your Lightning node, but your Lightning node is somewhere else, right? Now you can start to like talk to your Lightning node from anywhere and do interesting things like pay for things or wait for payments to receive. Like imagine if you're creating a web server where you expect a payment before you let the request go through. So maybe you would want to do like wait invoice for a particular invoice before you let the request through, and that can happen in real time over the Lightning network. So I'm excited for those type of use cases, like server to server, not just like client to server and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so for other people building there, it's that lnsocket, like you built that as a library where you can just like reference it from like anything else, right? For
Yeah, so if you want to use it in Node, you can just type npm install lnsocket and it will just work.
okay,
And if you want to use it from Go, there is an also way of doing it. It's in the document in the README. It shows you how to import it from Go. So if you're a Go guy,
yeah,
I think Fiat Jeff is actually using this for his own projects as well, which is kind of cool.
yeah,
And there's again the Rust version. It needs to be worked on. I want people to help me with that. If anyone's a big Rust person, if anyone wants to integrate that into the Rust projects, like I'd be happy to help with them. But yeah, I do want this to be like the universal library that you can use in pretty much any language to use Lightning. So
yeah,
so the only other thing is, I mean, this is kind of a core Lightning focused work group, it seems like, but there's no reason why LND couldn't implement Commando in their node, right? If they really wanted to. I'm really excited for the future if like somehow we standardize these RPCs so that you could use this on any node and be kind of cool. But even if we just create like a subset of RPCs that work on all nodes, I think that'd be really cool because then it'd be truly universal RPC on Lightning, right? But we're not there yet. But I did do a mailing list post in this Lightning dev mailing list about this. Didn't get much traction because like people are working on other things, but I think it's still a good idea. But what that subset would be, I don't know. But for now, just see Lightning's the way to go. Just so it's so easy to add RPCs and stuff like that. So
yeah. And so the lightest way you could do this is that you just need the C Lightning node to be running, right? So if you could use like Sauron for talking to Blockstream for the Bitcoin CLI part of it, then like you could, because like running a C Lightning node is like not very heavyweight at all, especially if you just maybe got like 1 or 2 channels or something, and then you're just hitting it with this stuff. And so you could just spin up a core Lightning node, have it point to Blockstream for using Sauron, and now you've got like the core Lightning side of things, and that's like just a super lightweight thing that you're running somewhere. Like you don't even need to be running full node to do this stuff, and you can get all of the using lnsocket, you connect to it, and then anything where it needs to talk to like Bitcoin Core, where it needs like a full node, like you can just point that at like someone's public, like either Blockstream or someone else where they've got an Electrum server that's like public facing, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of interesting use cases which I've yet to explore in terms of like, at different levels of like how like for me, I have a full node, or I have a C Lightning node that has a lot of channels and I can do a lot of stuff with that. But if you wanted to point it at like, so I'm interested to see how this is going to interact with Greenlight. I don't know. I think Greenlight's doing their own RPC, which was really sad when I saw that, like when Christian was doing non-commando stuff, but I think they have their reason for doing gRPC. But yeah, I'm interested to see different ways you can control different types of nodes. Like, yeah, maybe I didn't really fully understand your question, but
yeah, it's more just like so the lightest weight thing. If I just have like a normal web app and I want to like plug this in and like start using a core Lightning node or whatever, is that like you can, if you just spin up core Lightning and you use Sauron, so that instead of you having to run a full node on the back end, it just points to Blockstream, then that's something like you can literally just have that running as a sub process on like whatever whatever computer you normally use, and like it's not going to take up too much.
Is Sauron the one that fetches blocks? That's not.
It's like it disables Bitcoin CLI and the plugin, and then it just plugs in Sauron, and it just points to everything as like a API command against Explora, right? And so
yeah, if you wanted to get started playing with this right now, yeah, that would be one way to do it. I think spinning up a reg test. If you want to start playing with it like a reg test node, I think it'll work with reg test. But yeah, if you don't have like the space to run a complete full node, which is, I think honestly we can make core Lightning better with prune nodes. Like I think Christian said that it is you can configure C Lightning to be more prune node friendly, but I've always had really a lot of difficulties running a prune node on C Lightning. But if you want to use Sauron as backend and just spin one up and start playing with it even with a few channels, you can still do a lot of interesting things. Like it's funny because in theory you don't even nothing I talked about, like other than the fact I was using invoices and stuff like that. You don't necessarily need to use any of like Lightning Network stuff. You could actually use this as like a really dumb way to like do RPCs for your own applications, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of silly. You probably wouldn't want to run a full Lightning, but I just see Lightning makes it so easy to extend. So it's like, it's kind of fun as a thing if you want to just play around with that idea. But I think it's pretty cool. You can do stuff like that. You can also, another thing which is actually kind of interesting is that Core Lightning supports like these onion messages. So you could do like these one hop proxy messaging, which I have yet to do. Like imagine you construct an onion message using lnsocket locally, and you have a pre-configured route of just like one or two nodes. You can actually use that as kind of like an interesting way to build a small like private network or private VPN using messages. I haven't done that yet, but due to the fact that you have access to onion messages over the Lightning, you can actually start doing some interesting things with that, which I've yet to explore. But
yeah, so for I saw you had something for like logging in, right, using lnsocket. Like, is that something where it's just like the rune is also an identifier, or
sorry, doing what? Sorry,
for
logging
like
in?
using a login or like an authentication system? So if I'm if I've got this public web store, like what do you call in the web store that you're making? It's like a
I'm using BTC Merchant is
okay, yeah. So if I'm like someone who wants to like someone to be able to log into BTC Merchant, right? So they have like a persistent identity across time. Is that something where like they're logging in by doing something like LNUR auth, or like how are they logging in? Is that something that they're using, or is that something you're just implementing separately?
Yeah, so in the BTC Merchant case, it's designed as like a UI for managing your Lightning node.
Okay.
So typically what you would do, your login would be you need that rune so that your browser can call the RPCs. So that is kind of the tricky part right now, is like the setting up the connection string so that you can actually log in that sense. In LN Link, I have this method where you type in a command and it'll give you a QR code, and then your app, it just scans that QR code and then it logs you in. And it's basically just the connection string, which is the node ID and the IP.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's not really standardized, and I don't know if it's not super user friendly because you still need to generate the rune to begin with. But hopefully one day in the future, so some of these like node platforms like Start9 or Umbrel or Raspberry, whatever, Raspblitz, maybe it'll have a interface for creating this QR code that you can just scan, and that's one way to log in.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe this LN neural auth thing, maybe I should look into that if there's an easier way I can do it. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then John's looks like he has a question. So John's, you want to come off?
Hey there. Guys, first I want to say, like, this is an awesome initiative you guys are doing. I love it so much. We need like these kind of like in-depth kind of like builds and stuff in the community. So really, really happy to see this kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't necessarily a question. It was I wanted to respond to something that JB said concerning like wanting to see more of the node implementations utilizing these kind of ways to connect, because gRPC is definitely not doing it, and we have like a shitload of web developers that are in the world, and they don't know gRPC. Most of them don't know gRPC, but they know REST for one, or WebSockets, or other kind of web APIs. So there's this group, Balsa.dev, and it's John Carvalho, some guys from Albi. What we're trying to do is to basically create some specifications on like how you connect to a LSP, for instance, right? How do you, and like what are the standard APIs for that? How does a browser application interact with a wallet in the case of like WebLN? So one of the things that we've been working on is a new spec called like WebBTC, which will allow the wallet to connect the wallet. It could be a Bitcoin or Lightning wallet or both, to connect to the web browser, and you have access to those APIs to generate invoices or Bitcoin addresses and get them paid and stuff. Yeah, I haven't really like checked out the Commando stuff yet that's going on. I don't really know too much about the library, but it's looking really cool. Because yeah, just having to set up a web server, sorry, not a web server, but just like any kind of backend to kind of like proxy your node, it's such a hassle. And yeah, it's just gonna like really ease off like onboarding of new developers, which we really need. So just wanted to say like awesome work to you guys, and yeah, keep it up. I'll definitely be tuning in a lot earlier next time. It's a bit late here, as you can see, but needed to show some love.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. It's cool to see, the web LN stuff. I haven't been following it too much, but it seems like we all kind of want the same thing. We want to make it easier for people to kind of like interact with Lightning in different ways. I think Commando is like one awesome approach to do that, but there obviously are some downsides right now. So like one, like if you want to connect directly to a node, let's say you're in an HTTPS context, so a TLS context, you can't actually use WebSockets to connect directly to a node. You actually do have to proxy it. I forgot to mention this, but I wrote this project called LNWS Proxy. Let me just show this real quick. So in the case of sendsats.lol, the way that, so you'll notice that I'm actually in a TLS context, and you cannot connect directly to a Lightning node in a TLS context. So what I actually have to do here is, I don't know, it's getting screwed up. Oops, one sec. Or is it? Oh yeah, so I'm using this. I don't know if you can see this, but it's called proxy.lnlink.org. And then what this is actually do is I'm using my server to like bounce packets, Lightning packets, to an actual Lightning node, which is this one. This is kind of a cool like workaround for the fact you can't talk directly to a Lightning node when you're in a TLS context. But so going back to that, what you're referring to, there's some issues with using Commando directly in a web context. Like, so this is one issue. Another issue is like obviously can't connect to Tor nodes. Like if I try to put Tor here, maybe I can. I haven't really tested it, but you can't use, so, and there's so many nodes that use Tor, like a lot of LND Umbrel nodes just start off the bat with like Tor endpoints. So it's like you can't really use that connect from the browser. At least you could probably do it from a native app. But anyway, so there are still a lot of issues kind of work through in terms of making it easier to connect your node. But I feel like this is maybe just one option that might, especially if you have like a plain text connection, that it might be an interesting option to explore. So.
Well, I think like if you're running a node behind Tor, then and you're wanting to expose something over like HTTP, then you're kind of like identifying yourself somehow, because you're gonna have to pay for that web server and stuff like that. So you're creating that link, so you're losing some level of privacy, right? Just off the bat. But if you're a web developer who's just wanting to like create some service, maybe you're probably not behind Tor at that point, and because you understand that you're creating something for the public and you have a specific node for that. So I don't think that's like a super big issue. But like I wonder, have you thought about like JSON RPC as like an API type for some of these node implementations? I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but it works over it's like gRPC, but it works over HTTPS and uses HTTP and uses JSON to make the RPC calls.
Yeah, so Commando, C Lightning's RPC is actually JSON RPC, and obviously Bitcoin Core is JSON RPC. C Lightning is JSON RPC, and all Commando is doing is just simply doing JSON RPC over Lightning. So I like that just because it's simple and it's easy, and most developers can kind of get it. But obviously LND does something different. But yeah, if you're just using Commando as is, it's just all JSON RPC, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, another thing for it is something that I think everybody runs into when they're trying like the web development side of it, is that all of the documentation for like everything in nodes is built off of these RPCs, right? And so like all of the core documentation, all of Core Lightning's documentation, like it's all expecting you that like, hey, I'm interacting with thing from the command line, right? And so Commando is just now, instead of us like having to rewrite all of the documentation for like a REST API or whatever, right, is like now you just use whatever like Lisa writes for Core Lightning as docs, and it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's in some sense you're just calling like, it feels like you're just doing like the command line commands from your browser, which is kind of fun. And normally that would be terrifying, but just due to the fact that these runes are so powerful in terms of like, you could say, no, you're only allowed to call this method and this has this parameter and you can only call it 2 times. It's already more powerful than like a lot of web RPCs in terms of like securing the endpoint, which is kind of cool.
For the runes, can you deprecate them, like time deprecate them? So not exactly using them like sessions, but something kind of similar.
Yeah, so you can add a time restriction that says you can only use this for 10 minutes. So you can start with a rune that has no time restriction, and then maybe an application says, I'm like, oh, I'm about to give this to a user. I don't trust that user. You can actually, that any application can add further restrictions. So like, okay, like, well, you can, okay, I'm going to give it to this user, but they can only use it for the next 10 minutes because I don't trust them. So then you can pass that off to them, but you can still have the original rune that is untime restricted. It's kind of fun. So you can actually modify these runes on the fly to do interesting things.
Yeah, so you could even just like from the web app is like when someone logs in, it's like making a child rune off of that like allows you to do something for 5 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, so like
Right.
the web, if you do have a web server and you're like building this like app,
Yeah.
which I'm probably gonna do with BTC Merchant because it's gonna be able to serve product pages and stuff. Maybe yeah, you would just give like here you just give it to the browser like, hey, like here's a rune that, but you can mint these. Oh, I was actually gonna do this for anyway. I want to build a couple of demos around that idea, but it's a really powerful idea. Because imagine if you have an admin rune that you're using in BTC Merchant that has access to everything, you can that web application could then further restrict it when it for different use cases without having to like ask the node in particular to mint a rune. So
yeah, or something that just occurred to me too is that like think kind of like maybe like a sensei model, right? Where it's because you can just have like split off specific functionality that's going into that you like running within the web page or whatever, right? Is that from there, maybe like it could be its own node and then it's like, hey, it gets an invoice and then it forwards it along. That'd be pretty cool. But it would be
I had this crazy idea of like pretending like you could actually implement a full you can start to implement more and more handling of messages within the browser, and you can actually you could probably start building a whole lightning node within the browser. And like imagine if your lightning node is like you're connected to another node and you're receiving all the gossip from the network, and you're starting to build a gossip map of like all the other nodes, and then you in theory you could start to become more and more like incrementally more like a lightning node in the browser, which would be kind of crazy.
yeah.
Anyway, I haven't considered like that's if someone hardcore wants to do that, but it's kind of fun to think about. You could potentially do that. So
Yeah, I mean, like because you're saying like you get the gossip for it, right? But if it's, I know that your node is like a specific one, right? Like you can query gossip data from a specific node, and so you can like get from that node how to get to it, and then you can make the path yourself, and then like that's the thing that you're putting up there. Now, I'm not also saying like, hey, this is who I am when I'm trying to make the payment.
yeah, like I don't do this now in Socket just because it's like I'm only using it for RPCs, but
Yeah.
you could start building gossip maps and do like onion routing and stuff from within your browser. Like it's pretty hardcore. I haven't done that, but you could do it. I don't see why not, right?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Got John.
Oh, just one last question. So we're gonna be having a hackathon, supposedly like a pretty big one at the end of this year. Wanted to be like a long running one, and trying to like onboard like new people into the ecosystem. One question comes up for me is like, what's the easiest way to like get a node running, right? And like, we talk about like, hey, do testnet or reg test and stuff like that. But the point is like none of the wallets that you're going to be testing these things with support any testnet functionalities, right? The majority of them don't. So then you're going to be back on command line instead of like pulling out the Moon wallet and then doing switching to testnet and doing something on there. So then you're going to end up in like on mainnet, and then you also want to like present your project to people, whatever. I know one option is voltage.cloud, but do you guys have any kind of like insight onto like that part of the development, like the deployment of the of the node, and just like to get it up as quickly as possible so you can just start developing, whether it's locally or locally you could connect to the production, like the deployed one, or like if you guys know about some local dev environment that's like really great for doing this kind of stuff.
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer because I've been running the same Lightning node for like since 2018. I've just been slowly adding channels, and like that is my test node. My test node is basically like my main node that I use. I've never tried Voltage Cloud. I want to try Greenlight eventually because I want to add Greenlight support to like LM Link. But if anyone else has any insight to that, like please share that because I have no insight into that. So
yeah, I can show you a quick one. So like the fastest way I do it is like I because actually, JB, I think you're the one that did the Core Lightning Nix package, right?
I think either me or someone else did it.
Yeah, right. Is that so? If you know what Replit is, like Replit's a way to do. It's like the whole thing runs as it does a Docker container that runs Nix OS image inside of it, and so anything Nix, like you can run it in there. And so, Lisa, I don't know if you can enable sharing for me, but and I did a Core Lightning demo for it where like a Core Lightning walkthrough, and if you're using Sauron for it, like you can spin up a Core Lightning node talking on mainnet, but like the big issue is that normally you have to sync the node first, right? But if you're using Sauron with Core Lightning, then it's talking to Blockstream's Explora. And so you can spin up the node in like 20 seconds, right? And then using something like lnsocket, then you can immediately start talking to that node, right? And so, yep, so Lisa just enabled screen share, so I can show this. So
that's really cool. When someone mentioned that Replit's doing that, did you set up the Replit for the?
Yeah, I set up the Core Lightning one.
Because that's, and the fact, because because we have Nix Bitcoin, and the fact that just works in Replit is so cool. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So I made this one a tour of Core Lightning. Let me find where I put it. Is actually, let me just Google it. Of Core Lightning. So if you just go on Replit and look up a tour of Core Lightning, I've got it somewhere in here. Base58, a tour of Core Lightning. And then you just fork it off. So this is spinning up a Docker container with just a Nix OS image. And like, that's the only thing that's happening inside of here, right? But then if you go look at the hidden files in this replit.nix, then you just add, this is literally the only configuration that you do. You just add packages.bitcoind and packages.clightning, right?
So the only thing here is, I don't know if this wouldn't have commando in it, which would be the
yeah, no, so once, well, you can just plug in commando as a plugin, right? But
yeah, so I mean, if you just if once we update Nix Bitcoin with once the next version released, then you won't need to do the plugin thing, and this will just work. But yeah, for right now, I think I packaged the commando plugin, the old one. So
yeah, so if we just go over here real fast in my README, I've kind of got like steps for setting it up, and like this is if you just start like a brand new Replit environment, then you can just go down here, and if I wanted to set up. If I wanted to like just start it on mainnet, is that like this has not done any syncing, this has not done anything, is that I just start Bitcoin D, and now I've got a Bitcoin node running in this REPL, right? And so I'm gonna stop that because I don't want that right now. But what I do want is plugins are not here, so I'll delete this and then I'll just clone down plugins. Is that in the shell git clone .github.com/ it's like elements project, right? Or,
for which one?
I just want to get the plugins, right?
I think it's lightning d/plugins.
Lightning d/plugins. Yeah, you're right. Oh, sorry, it's just froze. But yeah, basically you just get the Sauron plugin, and the Sauron plugin starts up a Core Lightning node, but it points the Bitcoin backend at blockstream.info/API, right? And so now instead of you having to sync everything, all it's doing is just pointing all of your Bitcoin requests to Blockstream's Electrum server, right? And so like you lose privacy on that aspect of it, but it's a way that you can just really quickly start doing this stuff, right?
Yeah, this is so cool. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna play with this.
Yeah, so let me.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll just do the demo real fast. I know that this is kind of, like Will should be demoing, but like I think this is something that like Will, if you use this with like lnsocket, like this just becomes incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's a great way to get people into it. I think that's the hardest thing right now is getting people, if they don't have a node started, this is like going to help a lot.
Right. So let me do Sauron. Wait, oh no, sorry. This is why, is because this is all on Regtest is what I changed it to, but I made one using testnet, and that's the one that has all of this. So if I go back to my other one, getting started with Core Lightning, this is the one that uses testnet, is that if we go here to the shell, it's loading. Sorry. So readme. Yeah, you just install these Python requirements, and then you clone down the Lightning one. And then the one thing that you're going to run is this, right? So see how I'm doing lightning d dash dash testnet. So this is like started on testnet, run it as a daemon. And then over here, I'm saying disable the BCLI plugin and plug in Sauron. And Sauron's endpoint is pointing at Blockstream, right? So like that's the whole thing. So that now I'm going to plug this in, and let's actually start this on mainnet because that's fun. And if I'm on mainnet, Will, can I talk to your node directly if I start this up on?
If you want to.
Yeah, I could probably connect it directly there, right? So copy this over, and like this is like a fresh repo, right? There's like no install stuff that I did over here, right? So here I just have API, and then I go to mainnet.
Did you want to try to connect to it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's on my website here. Let's see.
Yep. Okay.
I'll paste it in the chat.
So in the chat over here. Copy. It's really annoying. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is really bad today. That's why I had to come up here. But yeah, so if you just go follow us, I'll post this afterward or whatever because I feel like I'm taking too much time. But now, like I'll do that connection to you, Will. But in the meantime, does anybody else have any other questions for JB or other stuff?
Yeah, I got a question for Will. I've been building on lnsocket. I've been going back and forth with you on GitHub. So yeah, thanks to the library, it's been really fun to build on. I'm working on like a progressive web app that connects to your core lightning node and hopefully turn it into an extension as well. And the idea being that you can probably just control, like, you know, when you're out and about, make payments like with ln-link, but hopefully in the future, just be able to completely control your node from the browser. But yeah, I've been trying to think of like, it's kind of like sketchy, you know, giving like an admin rune and how to convince people that they would want to do that. So but like to get the full power of like using it, you'd kind of want to. So being open source and everything will help on that front, you know, people being able to audit the code. But I've been trying to think of the idea of like sessions and stuff like that. So like you've got the gen key method, and I've been talking to you about like having a static public key.
Yeah.
I was curious if you had any thoughts of how you could make it less risky to give like a full admin rune, but maybe limit it to a particular node public key. But I guess that just kind of makes it just two pieces of information that someone would need to be able to take control of your node rather than one. So I'm not sure if that really adds much more of a security model. But yeah, curious if you had thoughts on that.
That is the biggest downside of this approach, is that you have that, especially it's particularly bad in the admin UI use cases because you have a token that has full control of your node. And if you don't trust the app, and it's so like, you almost have to like you have to be very careful. If you're just giving this to some app that you've never heard of, then they could just drain your node. So like you're putting a lot of trust into the code. So that is a downside. In the case of in the case of like mobile apps or something, if you're building a mobile app, that's maybe it can manage that key more appropriately with like secure element or something. But yeah, if you're just putting it into a browser, it's kind of sketchy. That's why like I don't know what the best solution is, other than what I really want to see is a way to. I want a UI that can build runes in a very intuitive way, so that you don't have to give full. You can actually get a lot done without giving full like unrestricted access to your node. Like for instance, like let's say you want to give the ability for this admin UI to pay for things, but you don't really need to give them just a unrestricted rune. You can just say, okay, you can still use pay. You just can't. You only call it once a minute and under a certain amount, right? So the thing is now you have to start building a whole bunch of runes to like interact with your system. And I think there's a spec that needs to be built there, which doesn't exist yet, which is like kind of like an OAuth, right? Because with OAuth, it's like you're giving, there's a prompt that says this app wants to use these features. And you want to be able to say, okay, fine, and here's the rune for that, but there's no mechanism to do that right now. It's just like, so there's protocols that need to be built on top of this that make that a lot more safer that just don't exist right now. But I think that can be improved in the future. I think.
Yeah, I was thinking like I could build like a UI that could generate commando commands. You could like select what like parameters you want to give, and then it generates a command you can copy and paste and put in, and that generates the rune. So that makes it a bit more like intuitive. So
yeah, and in some sense, it's like the tricky part is like you want different commands to use different runes, because like it's kind of hard to like fit everything into one rune with. So it's like you'd almost want some type of protocol that you can give it a package of runes for certain methods. But yeah, there's no standard for that, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, UI for that to like generate the runes and make it really intuitive to like, hey, like just let you know, user, you're about to give this app this, super admin powers. You don't want to do that. I think we need something like that. But any UI that can generate runes is going to have super admin permissions as well. So you have to trust that app now. But yeah, it's tricky for sure.
Yeah, hey, so I got it working now. So it's like literally just from setting up a fresh REPL, like all you're doing is you're going to the Nix config file, which is here, show hidden files. Where is it? Oh, wait, show hidden files, my bad. So you're just going to the Nix config files. You're just adding packages.clightning. And then you're pip installing the Python requirements, because Sauron's a Python plugin. And then you're just running this command. And now I have a Lightning node running, a mainnet Lightning node, right? And so from here, I just connected to JB's node. Right?
Yeah. So the plugin, the old Commando plugin is kind of actually pretty different from the. It's still compatible, but hopefully once we have the next version of C-Lightning, this will be much better. But
yeah, but like
I think you should be able to do. I don't know if you've installed the Commando plugin here, but you can just like.
No, I can probably plug that in though. So if we go,
you could try doing it, but it's like, yeah, it's just like you would just type Lightning CLI Commando, and then you can start calling methods on my
plugin start working directory slash. How do I do that? Plugins slash commando.
There might be dependencies that's not installed. We'll see.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I just installed a bunch of them for that one. So
there's like a rune. There's like a rune dependency.
All right. Exit before. Here, let me just.
Yeah. This is why it was the biggest and most annoying thing about this is it was hard to get people excited about this because it's just so hard to install this plugin.
It's just called runes.
Yeah, but it's hard to pack it anyway.
Okay.
It might take a while. It took me a while to package it into Nix Bitcoin, so we'll see.
Yeah. Let's try that. Oh, yeah, there we go. It's live.
There you go.
Cool.
So yeah, if you type Lightning -CLI Commando, you can use that to run Commando. So you can actually call things on my node. Let me just get a rune going here.
Missing require peer ID. Your peer ID is your node ID, right?
Yeah, and I have to give you a rune to call. Let's try get info.
Okay.
I'll do rate equals 10. I'll give you this rune. Check.
Sure.
There's the rune.
That ID. This is the rune. So okay, so you said it's commando node ID, and then I do like rune equals. So I have to pass it in like JSON or.
Just I pasted a rune.
Yeah.
Did you get the rune there?
Yeah, I got no. So it's.
I can't see the bottom of your screen.
Oh, sorry. Commando node ID. Is there a way that I can make this smaller? Sorry, so you can.
It's just like cut off. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know what the actual order is, but if
commando, it's commando. Well,
you just
commando help
or help
yeah.
commando.
Yeah. System is minimized, removing packages and content that are not. Oh, that's annoying.
What is that?
I have no idea. Oh, man pages.
Oh, interesting. That's it. Interesting. Okay.
On minimize.
I mean, if you just type commando, it'll give you it'll tell you what's missing, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just do it parameter by parameter.
Okay. So
Pure ID. So you just give it the pure ID,
pure
and
ID.
then just see what it says next.
Okay. Just gonna slowly work our way through this. So
Methods. You can
method.
type get info.
Get info.
Oh, what's in? You're gonna get a rune though, so that's weird.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's after that one. Just paste the rune after that. See if it works.
Paste it after. Oh, my bad. And then the rune.
Yeah, this is an older version of the plugin, so I don't know if it'll work, but
It's okay. It's worth trying.
yeah, maybe it doesn't know where the IP is. That's my only guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is
That's
a weird
okay.
thing. This is a weird thing about the actual commando command in the plugin is that you don't give it an IP, so that it has to find, it has to determine the IP somehow. But if you, that's why in lnsocket I have my own little command called lnRpc,
Okay, gotcha.
where you can give it an IP and it'll just work. But I don't know
Yeah.
why. Might just be an old plugin that doesn't work. But
Okay, gotcha. Well,
definitely try this. We'll get it updated next Bitcoin in the next release,
Yeah.
and then this will work much better.
yeah. Yeah, because like once you have that, then it's literally you just spin this up right here. and
Yeah,
then-
you'll just have commando. You don't have to install any plugins or anything.
Yeah. Right. And so again, what's nice about this, right, is because we're using Blockstream as the backend, then we don't have to do any of the initial block download or anything. Right.
Cool.
So, cool. All righty. Yeah. I don't know, Lisa, got anything else for okay,
Oh,
Joe Don's
see a
got a question.
hand.
Yeah, Cody, I did have a quick one. So that was early on. When you talk about runes and then you talk about the lnsockets architecture, I'm thinking you shipping these runes to a bunch of clients. In the case that you need to maybe service your node, this one node they're talking to, have you faced any challenges with that? How would you, for example, move over your node to like a new machine? Is like, can you move over with your runes, for example?
Yeah. So like, assuming you're not using like an IP address, you can have like, let's say if you have a domain name that points to an IP that's like running your node, and you want to move it to another machine. What I would do is I would just shut down my node. I would just move all my database files, and basically my entire Lightning folder to that new machine and spin it up. I might have to update the DNS record to point to that new machine to like change the IP address. But as long as you have the same database that has all the rune information inside, because all that rune information is inside your SQLite. I think it uses the data store plugin to store stuff. So it should just work. It's really the only thing that changed in that case would just be the IP address of your node. So.
Okay. And then can you serve with a fleet of nodes in any case? Or it's like this is designed for one to many in that case?
Are you saying like if you have multiple nodes running?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in the case you have multiple, I don't know what the use. I mean, are people?
I don't have a use case. I'm just curious about this.
I am curious to see. Yeah, I mean, and like maybe there's some like high scale stability use case where you have like a bunch of nodes running and they all talk to each other. In this case, each node would have their own node ID. I'd imagine. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know. Wasn't Christian doing something with like? No, that was just like the different Postgres back.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like something called multiplex that BottlePay came out. I think it's BottlePay or Bitrefill, I forget. It's wherever Yoast works. Yoast Jaeger came out with multiplex, which does like kind of this weird like multi-node setup thing. And I think Christian definitely has sketched out like ideas about how you would make that work. It's not something that you can do like currently. So I mean, I think there's probably a way you could make it all work with Commando, like, basically like I think you kind of need like a central node or central database that kind of coordinates access to the runes, right? Is basically like most of it. And then you need to know which nodes you can connect to with those runes. So it would be very similar, I think, to the way that like multiplex works, but it's not built. It'd be maybe a fun project to work on if you're into like node balancing and large scale like lightning deployments. But I think like for now, just getting started, personally, I'm like super excited about one-off, like just my one node, like being able to access my bookkeeping data from a dashboard sounds so sweet. I don't know.
Yeah. Something I just thought of was the Sensei model, right? Is that Sensei, he's got all the child nodes, right? And he's got thousands of different child nodes. And so like that's one where probably like you'd want to have like a central rune that can then be passed around to those child nodes, right?
Yep. I'll dig into ln URL. I'll dig into the library some more, learn something. Thank you.
This has been really awesome. Well, thank you for showing up and showing this off. And what's a good way for people to like get in touch with you or like contribute to the project or try stuff out?
Yeah, so I post too much on Twitter. I'm jb55 on Twitter. My website's jb55.com. I'm jb55 on GitHub. I'm jb55 everywhere. So you can pretty much just type jb55 into Google, find my stuff. But yeah, I just I'm gonna have a GitHub. If you don't like GitHub, you can send me patches by email. I don't know if anyone does that anymore, but I like it when I receive the email patch. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's yeah, GitHub. I'm glad I starting to see some people pop up in the lnsocket GitHub. Aaron, thanks for poking around, trying it out. I just want more people trying it out. I think it's really cool. It'd be cool to see more people, getting in there and trying fixing things. And so I'm glad that I did at least have a couple users trying it out. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully more after this. So
that's what I see. John's not here anymore, but he's like Bitcoin design community and Bolt.fun, and like LND kind of has like a monopoly on Bolt.fun right now because all of the APIs that they use are all LND based. And so, but like their big complaint before was like, hey, we're doing this for web developers, and like it's really difficult for setting up web development for Core Lightning. But like as you just demoed, right, it like takes like 10 seconds with a lnsocket.
Yeah, I think that's the thing right now. A lot of the devs just like they set up an LND node, and that's just kind of what everyone's doing. But then they're like, wait, there's something else going on over there. It's like, well, I already have my LND set up. I'm not gonna worry about what's going on over there. But I'm like, hey, this is actually easier than what you're doing. They're like, oh shit, like maybe I should be doing I'd be happy if they just implement Commando and LND so that like LN link would just work. But it's obviously they have completely different RPCs and stuff, so I don't know how that would work. But you need some like translation layer. It'd be pretty complicated. So
yeah. Hey, Nifty, as like a spec person, is that something that's like at all possible? Is like standardizing the RPCs, or just like the minimum set of them of like pay?
Well, okay, so like not to be like, I feel like the problem here is that like the functionality that like both that Nodes offers like slightly different, right? And like the kind of like the way that we've organized stuff, and like at some level, I think you're asking like the data attribute that's returned to be like exactly the same, right? So even if you had like the same rune and like commando like thing, at that level, you're like basically asking like two totally different implementations to like be like building to the exact same interface. And if you have like slightly different things that you're offering or like exposing, like that just it all breaks down really. Like
I would actually be happy if they just implemented Commando at the TLV layer, and I can actually I'm happy to handle the complexities of just calling, if I can detect if it's LND and then call gRPC over Commando or something. I'm like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like that would be cool too, but maybe that's too much to ask. But I tried to do it. I tried to implement, but just they don't have the plugin systems. Like I had to like write a server to do it or something. It was weird.
Seriously? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about building on LNDs, but that's interesting to hear. So you like basically would have to like add it to like the app or like, to the project, right, or something?
Yeah. So because they it seems like the standard way to interact with LND node is you're supposed to talk to it like a server, and then so if you want to let's say a custom message handler, you have to like somehow set up your own server, and then it will send you an RPC to your server. It's just very like awkward compared to the plugin method, right? So I think you could probably do it. It seemed very complicated at the time when I was looking into it.
I think they have their own version, their Lightning Node Connect. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's a similar kind of thing that you can connect directly to the node. But
yeah, it was complicated when I was looking into it. I don't know.
Yeah, it uses like PIC or something. It uses some complicated crypto, but I think you need a relay web server. So you still need a web server. So the cool thing about lnsocket is there's no web server in the middle. It's directly from like the iOS app will talk directly to my Lightning node, wherever that is in the world, or it'll talk the web page directly to my Lightning node. There's no like hop in between. I don't have to run a web server or anything. My understanding with LN Connect is you still need that like web server in the middle that does like some translation from the iOS app or web page that you're using, and does that is basically like the finder. Like there's like a middleman then. And you can run your own middleman, or you can use like a middleman that someone else is running, but you still kind of have to send all your traffic through a third party, is like my understanding.
I'm just confused why then I mean, as like these are the people like I'm not, I'm not trying to knock the L&D people or anything, but they're like, they contributed to the spec in some sense, right? Like Lalu and things like that. They're pretty lightning savvy. They know the spec very well. Wouldn't doing something like Commando be like the first thing, the most obvious thing? It just seems weird that it's not even an approach that's even considered on the L&D side.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like one thing that I like to think about when like I'm seeing what like Lalu builds or like their team kind of does, like Lalu is, I think, one of the probably most like knowledgeable cryptographers working on the Lightning side
Yeah, I
out of
noticed
like
that,
anyone. I think he knows more about like crypto and what's new and interesting in the crypto world than like any of the other like Lightning spec engineers. So I think he tends to gravitate towards projects that have new and interesting crypto usage. And I think the Pake thing was really new and interesting.
Right.
So I mean, I don't, that doesn't explain it, but at least like in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, they got to work on like a new cool crypto thing that they could do. And so that's like what they ended up building was a new cool crypto thing.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. And like we have Rusty, which is like master software engineer. Who's like, and then there's
Yeah,
Lalu, which is
exactly.
master cryptographer. But I think it's cool that they do complement each other in that sense.
Yeah, there's like different strengths, right? And I think Rusty is like really good. I mean, the thing Rusty is really good at, right, is like interfaces and APIs and like networking kind of level stuff.
Yeah.
Like he definitely shines in those areas. And I think that like Commando is like sort of a nice marriage of all the different parts where he's also really good at cutting things out. He's like, what can we like, what's the bare minimum that we need to get done to like accomplish a goal? And so like Commando, I think, kind of accomplishes that. I mean, for heck's sake, like he wrote runes, right? Because he decided macaroons was too complicated. So he cut the max out and that's how you got runes, which is like macaroons are what.
I was initially so frustrated with that because like I've written like 2 or 3 macaroon libraries for all my projects, and I'm like, oh, now I have to write a rune library. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is actually really smart, and I wish I had these features in macaroons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so that's like, yeah, like you said, like that's like Rusty's like magic sauce is doing stuff, making things simple,
and
like,
and writing a lot of code really quickly somehow. I don't know.
Magically, yeah, I don't know. It was like raising like 3 kids and like, yeah, I don't know.
It's insane, but yeah. It's honestly, C Lightning. It's awesome. It's a pleasure to work on. I'm glad. Like I don't know why there's not more devs, because I just think it's an amazing project. It's really easy to extend and hack on, right? It's just like it's the best Lightning node to hack on. If you're a hacker and you like hacking on things, and C Lightning is the way to go. So.
And I think, and lnsocket, honestly, I think it like you personally will like, I think open up like a whole new horizon, I think, in terms of making cool new apps that like can use CLN and hopefully, any other Lightning node, like, I'm sure async and LDK would be happy to have like Commando style, like extensions to them. So yeah, so I think you're definitely like part of the hackers that make our ecosystem cool. So it's like, cool.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher level, but like I still think there's cool things up here. I wish I could do more lower level spec stuff, but yeah, it's fun just building on top of Lightning, even just at a higher level. So
yeah, I just got a Mac. I'm really hoping I can like, I don't know, maybe add some stuff to your iOS to LN Link. I want to use that more. So
yeah, it'd be awesome if we got like some bookkeeper stuff or even like channel management, or there's so many things that'd be added to.
Good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so good.
My next thing, like the one, sorry, this is like solely off topic, but for the bookkeeper, I'm working on adding right now, like ability to track like tagging rebalances. So you'll have like really good data about where your costs are for channel management. So anyways.
Sweet. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much to build, guys. Like, let's start building. It's gonna be fun, I think.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Okay. If anyone is, I think that's like kind of like, I mean, we've got a few more minutes, but if there's not anything else, thank you so much, Will, for showing up and for showing what you're working on. If you are around, well, for next week, we're going to be doing same thing, same time. We're going to have Rachel from Stratum V2 showing off Stratum V2, which is like a mining stuff at like protocol level. So that should be super exciting. If you guys want to show up next week, we'd be super happy to have everyone. So.
Cool. I'm down. Is there like a calendar for all this stuff?
Yeah, it's in like the Eventbrite.
There's an Eventbrite.
Oh, Eventbrite. Okay.
But yeah.
All right. I'll join that. I'll definitely come to the next one.
Yeah. And then after that, I think the week after that, we're going to Fiat Jaff. And then after that, we're still planning stuff. So the next 2 weeks are going to be Rachel for Stratum V2. And then after that, it'll be Fiat Jaff with, I think, a Mortan and something called like Cliche, I think.
Yeah, Mortan's interesting. I haven't looked into it, but it seems very different and fascinating. So
yeah. Doesn't he also run LNTX bot?
I think he shut it down. I actually had to like kick it off my node because I just noticed it kept kind of reconnect to my node like every second. I'm like, this is like, what is going on? So I'm glad he killed that. but
This was great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye, y'all.
see you guys.